Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on another Gucci Glock clone. Now I know some people are going to say that's not a Glock clone. Well, I'm going to talk about that later in this video. But today I am reviewing the ZEV Technologies OZ9C. And that C, I believe, means it is compensated. Yeah, look at that big old compensator on the front. I know some people are going to say that is overkill, especially for a compact 9mm. And I might be one of those people. But once again, I'll talk about that later in this video. But before we talk about this really cool and awesome pistol, I want to thank the people that always make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this cool pistol, and he is a local subscriber and fan of the channel. His name is D. Well, that's just his first initial. It's all he wants me to use. So thank you, D, for lending this to the channel as always. I want to thank my Patreons because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here. You guys know I'm a YouTube bad boy, and apparently this content I'm making is not family friendly. Well, all the time. Well, you know how YouTube can be. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports, thus making them financially feasible. That is my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And yes, it is that time in the video where I talk about the greatest grip company that you guys can purchase from, and that is Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of exotic wood grips for a wide variety of firearms. Mark over there is an artist. He is a master craftsman. He can make any type of wood grip that you would possibly need for any firearm that you own. He does everything custom. Every set of grips is custom made, one of a kind. He can put on custom engravings and logos. He can finish them in a wide variety of colors. He can even put on exotic materials such as snakeskin and leather. Yes, take a look at these pictures right here. I was even talking with Mark recently, and he told me that he made a bunch of sets of grips that matches a customer's boots. Yeah, how cool is that? What other grip companies are doing that kind of work? I'm telling you, he also has great customer service and amazing pricing. Mark is just an amazing craftsman, and he goes above and beyond with every single order. So I'm going to put a link in the description below and also as a pinned comment. And I'm asking, if you like the Texas Gun Vault and you want to support me, well, please go check out Brownworks. He does so much for me here at the channel, and I know he can do a lot for you making one-of-a-kind custom grips. I'm also going to put a discount code as well for 10% off your first order. So please go over there, check out his website, see what he has to offer. If you don't find what you're looking for, I guarantee you he can help you out. Just make sure when you contact him, tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about what this particular gun is. It is a compact pistol. It's a Glock 19 clone. Now, I know some of you guys that love ZEV Technologies pistols and even other companies like Shadow Systems will always put in the comments, that is not a Glock clone. How dare you say that? It's a completely different pistol built from the ground up. Well, I will definitely say it looks different, but functionally, it's the same. And I'm going to prove it to you. So I'll go ahead and field strip this particular gun here. We'll take off the slide. And here we have a Glock 19 Gen 3. Let me go ahead and field strip this one as well. Take off the slide there. So here we have the Glock 19 slide on the ZEV Technologies frame. And guess what? It works. I hate to tell you, it is a Glock 19 clone. That's not saying that it's a bad gun or it's just a Glock 19. It definitely is made of a bunch of different parts and upgraded parts, and everyone says these are Gucci Glocks. So don't be offended just because the gun has the same internal workings and dimensions as a Glock 19. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, but don't get offended. So it is a Glock 19 clone. I don't care what you say, it is. That is just the fact of the matter. Now this is the OZ9C, which once again means that it is compensated. Now I have reviewed one of these guns in the past, and it was not the compensated model. Now, I will tell you, I have kind of a love-hate thing with compensators because sometimes I feel they are not needed. And depending on how these cuts in the top of the barrel work, it can be good or bad depending on where they blow that gas. Now, on a compact 9mm pistol, do you really need a compensator? I don't think so. But it definitely is cool. And you have to understand too, I'm also a collector and I love learning and collecting all different types of firearm actions and mechanisms. And so having a compensator like this is definitely cool. It's different. But as I said, everything has a pro and a con. But speaking of pros and cons, let's talk about the things about these guns that I like and don't like. And let's always start with the positive first. First and foremost, I've already told you, it's a Glock clone. Glocks are simplistic. They're known for being very robust and they work well. It is just a time-proven design, just like the AK-47 is. That's why Glock is so popular, and they really haven't changed their designs in what, 40 years? Now, all a company like ZEV Technologies does is take that base gun and upgrade it with a ton of options. I don't think there's a real Glock part on this gun, but pretty much everything is interchangeable with a Glock gun, but every part is upgraded. So I like the simplicity of that gun. And essentially because it has all those Glock parts or Glock compatibility, you have the entire huge aftermarket of Glock parts from magazines and other things. And for example, they don't ship them with Glock OEM mags, they ship them with Magpul mags. So you just have so many options when it comes to the aftermarket support for a gun like this. I also really like the aesthetics. One of the things people complain about Glock pistols is how blocky and boring they are. Well, the ZEV Technologies pistols are definitely not blocky and boring. It definitely upgrades the aesthetics a whole bunch. And finally, the last thing that I really like is the fact the slide is cut for a red dot. Yeah, I've really grown to appreciate red dots, and I do think they are the wave of the future. I don't always shoot them the best, and sometimes I kind of find it a little bit harder to acquire that dot over the iron sights, but it's something that I'm personally working on, and I definitely think as technology gets better, they're only going to become more versatile and more practical. And they've already come a long way in just the past 10 years. So to have that option, I know that's going to be a very attractive feature for a lot of potential buyers. So let's go ahead now and talk about the couple of things that I don't like. And the first thing is going to be the major selling point of this gun, the compensator. Yeah, I like compensators, and I like the way stock Glocks do their compensators with two slits on the side, and the gases are essentially ported to the sides. Well, not exactly directly to the sides, but kind of up and out. These compensators that are on the top are definitely more effective, but they blow the gas up. Now, the way these ports seem to be drilled, I think they're supposed to go a little bit to the front, but you have a lot of gas in a short barrel, and that can give you a lot of flash. And if you're using a red dart or even using the iron sights in low light situations, well, it can be kind of bright and it can kind of blind you, especially if you were under a lot of stress. I also don't find them to be very practical on a gun of this size, chambered in 9mm. Now, if this was chambered in a much more powerful caliber, maybe 10mm, well, it would definitely hurt your ears a little bit more and you'd feel that gas in your face, but it might be a little bit more practical. But in a 9mm compact, I don't really see the point. I don't really have a problem with a gun like this keeping it on target. And I'm also curious how it's going to affect the red dot and the sights. Every time I shoot a Glock compensated model, especially my Glock 24 SBR with a ported barrel, it always makes that front sight get absolutely filthy. And I have a feeling it's going to make this red dot kind of filthy and maybe unusable after a couple of magazines. Now, something I do want to complain about on this gun that's going to surprise a lot of people is the trigger. Now, a lot of times there's a lot of companies out there that make aftermarket triggers for Glocks and Glock clones that are really nice. But this trigger from ZEV kind of surprises me because it doesn't feel very good. Now, it is a flat-faced trigger, and that's not what I'm going to complain about. What I'm actually going to complain about is how heavy it is and how gritty the take-up is. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this right here, and I don't know if this is going to come across on the microphone, but when I pull this trigger back, man, there is a lot of sound in there. You can kind of hear it. Yeah, it's just kind of gritty. It's not what I was expecting. It doesn't really have a very defined wall. There's definitely a wall there, but it's not like a Glock that I'm more used to. And I feel like the trigger return spring is a little bit too stout because when I pull it back on the take-up, it takes a little bit more effort than what I would want. So I don't really look at this as a target trigger. I'm not really sure what they're trying to market it as. Is it a duty trigger? Is it a target trigger? Is it just a general trigger? I don't know, but it has a couple things about it that I don't like. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad or it doesn't work. It just means for my personal preferences and shooting style, it's just not what I'm looking for. And I'm 100% sure this is the factory trigger because it has the ZEV logo on it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is an ergonomic issue, and it has to do with this magwell. Now, I like very small magwells on guns like this. In fact, even the frame of my personal Glock 19, I installed a Magpul magwell, and it works really nice. I think it adds a lot to it, makes reloads a lot faster. But I do notice on this frame, it does seem to be just a little bit shorter than a stock Glock frame. Just a hair shorter. Now, I got bigger hands and fatter fingers, and with this magwell, I can't comfortably get all 3 fingers on this grip. So it's kind of in that in-between area. So I either want to have my pinky dangling or I have to compress my hand to get it on that grip. It needs to be just a little bit longer. And as I said, when I hold it side by side with a stock Glock frame, it's just about 1 millimeter or 2 longer, and I find that to be a little bit more ergonomic and work better for my hands. And so if you have larger hands, this might get in the way, but it seems to function and work really well. So I definitely do like that. All right, so I've talked a lot about this gun, so let's get this thing to the range. I'm gonna set up the target at 7 yards, load up one of these 15-round magazines. I'm just curious how this trigger's gonna shoot, how the gun's gonna fire, if I'm gonna like this compensator or not, and in general, how it works. So let's see how I do. So first of all, that wasn't a great group. It kind of surprised me. And this is one of those things when it comes to red dots that I just don't seem to shoot them as well. I'm not really sure why. I've always kind of preferred iron sights, but the grouping was okay, especially for practical accuracy. Everything was on target. I just want to get the smallest group possible. And that's what these red dots are really supposed to help you with. I'm not going to blame the red dot or the gun. I just didn't shoot it as well as I thought, and it could be the trigger because that trigger just doesn't feel good to me. I also noticed that the ejection after editing that range footage was pretty weak. And so I want you guys to pay attention to that in all of the rest of the range footage you see in this range report. Why is it ejecting weak? I don't know. I know some of you guys are going to ask what ammunition we're using. Well, I was using 115 grain PMC and 124 grain Winchester white box, and it's kind of a mix of the two. I kind of go back and forth to make sure different types of ammunitions run in every gun. Normally, I don't talk about it because there's no issue, but right now we have some weak ejections. Could that also be because the compensator is venting so much gas and pressure from that cartridge it can't cycle the action enough? I don't know. But now we're going to talk about the compensator. After shooting one magazine, the lens on this red dot is absolutely filthy. So I'm having to wipe it down after every magazine. I don't like that. It's one of the downsides of these compensators, especially the ones that vent the gas directly up. All right, so now let's put the target out at a further range. I call this the accuracy portion. No, I'm not going to bench rest the gun. I just want to see if I can shoot this gun still as accurate at a further distance. I'm going to put the target out at about 15 yards, doubling that distance, put another 15 rounds through this gun, and I'm going to aim for the head on this IDPA target. So let's see how I do.
Yeah, go for it. Big battleship far right on your top. Big battleship? Yeah, the big battleship. So wherever you want to go. I want to do the little one that I needed to do. Oh, okay. I'm just imagining the hustle.
And so the grouping still isn't that good, but it still works for practical accuracy and that everything is still on target. So if I had to use this in any type of defensive scenario, it's definitely going to work. It's just not that super tight group that I was hoping to get. Now that I've also taken a little bit more time with the trigger, I still don't like it. I have a very hard time staging it for the next shot. I just don't feel that wall as nice as I would like to, like even on a standard Glock OEM trigger, and that take-up is kind of gritty, and you notice it when you're taking your time. I'm still getting weak ejections, and this time I was using that Winchester White Box 124 grain, so I think that is going to be an issue in general on this gun. So that does concern me when it comes to the reliability, but so far we've had absolutely no issues. All right, so the next test I'm going to do is the quick magazine change. I've already talked about this mag well a little bit, and this is a test that I like to do because I'm just an average gun guy. I'm not a competitive shooter, and you might carry a gun like this for self-protection. And of course, you might carry a couple of magazines. Or maybe you are a competitive shooter and want to know, can you change the magazine in this gun fast? So I'm kind of curious. I think this mag well is definitely going to help me. I'm going to load up 2 of these magazines with about 5 or 10 rounds apiece. I think it was 5. And I'm going to see if I can change this magazine out fast. And also, how fast can I shoot the gun? Is it practical? And do I have any issues? So let's see what I found out.
Alright, so I'm going to aim on the top side.
All right, so I'm actually pretty impressed with the speed and accuracy shooting it this fast. Now, when I do these types of tests, normally I'm just point shooting. I don't have time really to acquire that red dot. All the rounds were on target. The gun shoots very naturally, and I actually feel like I can shoot this trigger pretty darn fast, but I did have an issue with the magazine change, and it has to do with the magazine release button. Now, it looks really, really nice. However, it's not sticking out of the frame very far, and the part of the release that is the furthest out is towards the front. Now, for me, I don't usually push my thumb that far forward to drop that magazine, so it was kind of back and it slowed me down. So to get that magazine to drop out was kind of an issue, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't what I was expecting, because normally when I do these tests, I don't try to test it beforehand so I have some type of advantage. These are often my first shots doing these particular things. So a lot of different issues may present themselves, and that definitely presented itself. I had a hard time pushing that magazine release button. I would just have to know to push my thumb a little bit further forward on that frame. But that was the only issue that I really had, but I was actually impressed with how fast I could shoot this. All right, so this thing I want to do is give my wife a chance to shoot this. She likes shooting all these guns, and she does shoot Glocks usually pretty darn good. So I'm excited to see what she has to say. Once again, I think she's going to be a little bit sensitive when it comes to the texture of this grip. I actually personally like the texture of this grip module. It's not too aggressive. It's very sticky, but it's not like sandpaper. So for me, it's that kind of happy medium. I don't know if she's going to say anything. I'm not going to mention it, so we'll have to see what she says after shooting it. But right now, I think she's going to like it. She likes her Glock 19, so let's see what she thinks about this compared to that. All right, so it is very obvious that we had some feeding issues there. Now, why was that? Now, I have discovered that one thing about Glock OEM pistols that I really like is the unsupported chamber. Now, I know some people hate it, especially reloaders, because it bulges the case a little bit. But one of the things that a lot of aftermarket barrel companies and other companies that make these Gucci Glocks do is they make the chambers a little bit smaller, a little bit tighter. It's supposed to help with gas sealing and with accuracy. But the whole point of that unsupported chamber is for ease of extraction and ease of feeding. It gives it just a little bit more room. It's like an AK-47. The reason the AK-47 is such a reliable rifle is because it has such loose tolerances. Some people think that's good, some people think that is bad. Now, when it comes to a pistol like this, sometimes I think too tight of tolerances can be bad. And this is one of those cases. Now, she was definitely not letting the gun flip on her, but her grip was a little bit less than mine. So with the compensator, and I think the gun flipping just a little bit, and the fact we're having those weak ejections, we just didn't have enough recoil tension on that recoil spring to chamber that next round. So she was having to push forward on the back of the slide. It kind of surprised me. I kind of felt like it was going to do that when I was personally shooting it. And I will say there was one time when I was putting the very first rounds through the gun just to make sure it functioned. When I chambered that first round, it did get kind of stuck on the feeding, but I thought, it's just the first round. I didn't have any other issues, but my wife definitely did. So the tolerances in this are definitely a lot tighter. You may like that, you may not like it. Personally, I don't like it. I don't like the tolerances to be so tight that it's not going to run with all 9mm. Now, we both did try the 124 grain and the 115 grain, and we had exactly the same issue when it comes to the feeding. Now, that's going to be a pro or con thing to you depending on your personal preferences, but the tolerances on this gun are definitely tighter than a Glock. So as I said, is that good? Is that bad? It's up to you. I'm not telling you if it is or not. I'm just saying I personally like the tolerances to be a little bit looser, especially on that unsupported chamber. It just makes guns like this run a little bit more reliable. All right, so there's one more test that I want to do before giving you guys my final thoughts. And of course, that is the mag dump. I've already shot this gun kind of fast, and yeah, this really is just a fun test. It's not to prove anything, but I want to see how fast I can shoot this thing. I'm going to point shoot it, dump the magazine as fast as I possibly can. And I think with this compensator, which by the way, it definitely does work. You do feel a difference when it comes to the recoil. I think I'm going to be able to keep all 15 rounds on target. But let's see what I do, and let's have some fun with it. Well, I can definitely pull this trigger fast and the gun works well. And let me tell you, that compensator works great as well. So it definitely functions. It might not be practical, I think, for a gun like this, but there is no doubt that this thing works. And these compensator holes are gigantic on such a short barrel. I just also kind of feel like we're losing so much gas, and that's why I'm having such weak ejections. So I think if you're gonna run a gun like this with a compensator, you might need to run a weaker recoil spring. But you guys would have to tune your gun. But this is the way the gun came from the factory, so you can decide what that means. All right, so what are my final thoughts on the ZEV Technologies OZ9C? Well, it is definitely a cool gun. There is no doubt that this gun is well built. I mean, everything on this looks like it was built meticulously with a lot of thought. They thought about the ergonomics. They thought about putting quality parts into a Glock clone. As I said, don't hate me. It's just the truth of what this is. It's not like ZEV Technologies designed this gun from the ground up with a whole new operating system or mechanism. It is Glock dimensions. But they did a great job in putting on some of the highest quality parts you can put on a gun like this. So from that standpoint, the build, the function, it works well, with the exception of that weak ejection, and I've already kind of given you guys my ideas and theories on why it has that issues. But it is such a well-built gun. It looks very attractive, so if you want a Glock-style gun that's not a Glock, and you want to pay a lot more for it, well, this might be the way to go. However, is it worth it? You know, the price on this, I think we have to talk about, because these guns aren't cheap. You're going to pay a lot more than a standard Glock for this particular pistol. And is it worth it? Well, the truth is only you know for yourself. You have to know your budget and exactly what you're looking for. When it comes to me personally, I think the Glock 19 is one of the best handguns that has ever been designed. Is it the sexiest? No. Is it the most aesthetically pleasing? No. Is it the most accurate? No. Does it have the most capacity? No. But does it do a whole bunch of stuff really well? Yeah. This gun is the great compromise, and you can get them for a relatively affordable price, and they've been around in all 5 generations that Glock has produced. And even the other generations that were made between the generations, like the RTF2 frames as well. And this is essentially ZEV Technologies taking a time-tested and proven design and just making it really nice, made of all Gucci and high-end custom parts. So I don't think you're going to have a problem in the long run with this particular gun. But the gun as it sits, I did have issues. I have that weak ejection issues. I have the problem with the compensator, making the red dot absolutely filthy and unusable after about 2 magazines. You really see it through that lens. I don't shoot the gun very accurately. I think the gun is accurate, but I think it has to do with this factory trigger, and this magazine release isn't the exact design that I would want. And then also ergonomically, I have a hard time getting all 3 fingers on that frame. I wish it was just a millimeter or 2 longer, like a Glock OEM frame. But overall, I have no major issues with it. All my problems with this gun are just more personal preference, but I also wish, once again, I think the major issue with this is the weak ejection. So that could cause problems over time and cause those feeding issues or maybe even ejection issues, and the gun might not be as reliable as a stock Glock. But the quality is definitely here. You also get a very nice case with it as well, so that's kind of built into the price. So once again, you have to decide, is it worth it? But it is a Glock 19 clone. And you can build guns like this from other aftermarket companies. You can get specialty frames, slides, compensated barrels, you name it. It just kind of depends on the way you want to go. But if you want to buy a custom Glock-like pistol, this might be an awesome choice. So, on my star system, how would I rate the ZEV Technologies OZ9C? Well, I know some people are going to be disappointed with this, but my star rating is going to be probably a little bit lower than a lot of people. I'm only going to give it 3 out of 5 stars. Weak ejections, not ergonomic for me. That compensator makes that red dot really filthy, but it works. So it's a functional gun, but it's just not for me. But when you hold one of these, you realize it is a high quality gun. So it might be the perfect firearm for you. But 3 out of 5 stars for me and my personal experiences with the ZEV Technologies OZ9C. So what do you guys think? Do you like ZEV? Do you like Gucci Glocks? Do you like Shadow Systems? Do you like these companies that take time-tested and proven designs and build a completely different gun around them just out of nicer parts? Do you think it's worth the price? And that's a good debate to have, and I can't wait to see what you guys say in the comment section below. So, as always, thanks for watching.